Welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber Audio Magazine. Each edition brings you sharp insights and fresh perspectives from the world of cybersecurity, straight to your ears. For more resources and content, visit baremetalcyber.com or cyberauthor.me. Let's dive in. Schrodinger's Firewall captures a paradox that is both unsettling and instructive. In the quantum age, your data can be simultaneously safe and already compromised, and you won't know which until it is too late. This paradox frames our discussion, inviting us to think of encryption not as a timeless guarantee, but as a fragile safeguard under mounting stress. Quantum computing is no longer a speculative headline. It is an inevitability shaping today's risks and tomorrow's vulnerabilities. When we imagine encrypted files, financial transactions, or confidential communications, we often assume they are locked behind unbreakable walls. Yet, quantum technology is poised to strip those walls away, exposing secrets we assumed were untouchable. This episode begins by shining a light on that uncomfortable truth. Our digital world rests on cryptographic foundations that are already cracking under the weight of future possibility. To appreciate the scope of the challenge, we need to look beyond science fiction metaphors and ground ourselves in what encryption really means. Encryption is the quiet guardian of our modern lives. It secures medical records, protects personal messages, and underpins global commerce. Without it, trust in the digital ecosystem collapses. Quantum computing threatens to unravel that guardian role, not with a gradual erosion, but with a sudden and irreversible breach. Imagine waking up to find decades of encrypted archives instantly accessible to those who prepared for the moment. Nation-states, corporations, or even well-funded criminal groups could peel back layers of protection once thought invincible. The paradox becomes clear. Your data feels secure today, but its long-term fate is already sealed by the coming capabilities of quantum machines. The question then is not whether quantum computing will impact cybersecurity, but when, how fast, and how devastating the disruption will be. This isn't a problem for some distant future generation. It is a live concern shaping decisions right now. Data is being harvested, stored, and quietly stockpiled by adversaries who anticipate the moment when encryption no longer holds. Organizations may assume they can delay until standards are finalized or tools are widely available, but delay is exactly what threat actors are counting on. As we open this discussion, keep the paradox of Schrodinger's Firewall in mind. Your information sits in a box you cannot open, and until the lid is lifted by quantum power, it is both safe and screwed at the same time. The choice before us is whether to prepare now or to learn too late which outcome was waiting all along. The quantum threat to encryption begins with the unsettling realization that the mathematical puzzles once thought unbreakable are no longer safe. For decades, RSA and ECC provided the backbone of trust for our digital world. Their security depended on the difficulty of factoring massive integers or solving discrete logarithms, problems so demanding that even the fastest supercomputers would need thousands of years to succeed. This assumption created a sense of permanence. Encryption felt like a vault built of stone. But quantum computing, equipped with Shor's algorithm, redefines those problems as trivial exercises. What once required unimaginable resources could one day be reduced to a mere calculation running on specialized hardware. The fortress we relied on was never permanent. It was simply waiting for a new kind of machine. Quantum computing turns the mathematics of impossible into inevitable, and the very algorithms that secured the internet for decades now look like relics poised for collapse. The danger is not hypothetical but active. Encrypted information doesn't lose its value just because time passes. Financial data, intellectual property, medical records, and national security files can remain sensitive for decades. Recognizing this, adversaries have embraced a chilling strategy known as harvest now, decrypt later. Intelligence agencies intercept encrypted data and store it away, confident that once quantum computers achieve the necessary scale, those secrets will be opened like a time capsule. Imagine a hospital securing patient histories under today's encryption, only to see them exposed 20 years from now. Or a corporation protecting a patent filing, believing it's safe, while a foreign competitor sits on stolen encrypted files, waiting patiently for the tools to unlock them. Every email, contract, or message encrypted today may already be compromised in spirit, if not yet in fact. Encryption no longer protects only against current attackers. It must defend against the future. This looming reality is encapsulated in the concept of Q-Day, the point at which quantum computers gain practical capability to undermine today's encryption. Predicting when this day will arrive is extraordinarily difficult. Some estimate it could be a mere 5 years away. Others extend the horizon to 2 decades or more. The uncertainty stems from the challenge of error correction, keeping qubits stable long enough to perform reliable computations. Without breakthroughs in this area, progress stalls. With them, it accelerates dramatically. The danger lies in assuming we will have decades to prepare, because breakthroughs rarely announce themselves in advance. One sudden leap in error correction or qubit design could collapse the timeline from years to months. Governments and businesses cannot afford to gamble on the slower clock. For those stockpiling data today, Q-Day will not be a surprise. It will be an opportunity to open vaults long thought sealed. For everyone else, it will be too late to prepare. The inevitability of this trajectory was underscored in 2019 when Google announced it had achieved quantum supremacy. Their quantum processor completed a calculation in minutes that would have taken classical supercomputers thousands of years. The task itself was abstract, but the achievement was symbolic. Quantum machines had crossed from theory into demonstrable reality. This was the moment the world was forced to admit that quantum wasn't merely a laboratory curiosity. It was a technology advancing on a clear path toward broader capability. Supremacy in one domain paves the way for supremacy in others, including cryptography. Importantly, quantum doesn't need to outperform classical computers across the board. Even modest quantum advantages could unravel algorithms like RSA, reducing what once took centuries to mere hours. The moment that advantage is achieved, countless systems will shift from secure to broken almost instantly. What makes the threat worse is not only the science, but the myths that comfort decision-makers into inaction. Many dismiss quantum as too far away to matter, failing to grasp how quickly technology can accelerate. Others cling to the belief that new algorithms will simply arrive in time, as if complex transitions can happen overnight. Some assume their data won't matter years from now, ignoring the long-lived sensitivity of medical records, contracts, or intelligence files. Still others confuse post-quantum cryptography with quantum cryptography, assuming an exotic fix is right around the corner. These assumptions are dangerous because they buy attackers time. While organizations wait for clarity, adversaries collect, prepare, and position themselves for the day when defenses crumble. Schrodinger's firewall is not just a clever metaphor, it is a warning. Your data is both safe and compromised right now, and the moment the quantum lid is lifted, the truth will be revealed. The race to create quantum-safe algorithms is one of the most important technological competitions of our time, and it is being led by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST has orchestrated a global, multi-year competition that functions almost like a cryptographic Olympics. Instead of athletes, the competitors are algorithms designed to resist the known strengths of quantum computing. For decades, the world relied on RSA and ECC without serious challengers. But the threat posed by Shor's algorithm changed the rules entirely. Now, dozens of research teams around the world have submitted candidates, with Crystal's Kyber and Dilithium rising as strong frontrunners. The key is not only security against quantum attacks, but also practical considerations like speed, efficiency, and integration. Standards have to function across countless systems, from cloud platforms to medical devices, without paralyzing performance. Final standardization is expected soon, marking a historic shift, the official dawn of the post-quantum cryptographic era. At the center of this movement is lattice-based cryptography, a mathematically rich framework that has emerged as the most promising defense against quantum attacks. Unlike factorization or discrete logarithms, the lattice problems exploited by these algorithms appear resistant to Shor's and Grover's methods. The strength of lattices lies in their structure, complex, high-dimensional mathematical grids that defy shortcuts. From a security standpoint, they are puzzles with no efficient solution known, even when wielding a quantum computer. Equally important, lattice-based approaches balance theoretical hardness with practical performance, making them deployable in the real world rather than confined to academic papers. Technology giants are already testing these algorithms in hybrid environments, mixing them with classical cryptography to create transitional systems. In practice, lattices are quickly becoming the new backbone of digital trust, a role once held exclusively by RSA. Though lattices dominate the conversation, they are not the only candidates worth noting. Hash-based and code-based signatures continue to play an important supporting role, particularly in systems where digital signatures are more important than full encryption. These methods have long histories in cryptographic research, offering strong security foundations. However, they carry trade-offs, often demanding greater bandwidth or storage, which makes them less suitable for every application. Think of them as specialized tools rather than universal solutions, like rugged vehicles designed for difficult terrain rather than daily commutes. They may not become the global standard, but in certain sectors where resilience and verification are paramount, they will remain indispensable. Their value lies in complementing lattice systems, ensuring that no single mathematical approach is the sole line of defense. In a future where attackers are unpredictable, diversity in algorithms becomes an essential strategy. Bridging the gap between today's vulnerable systems and tomorrow's standards are hybrid cryptographic models. These transitional frameworks combine classical algorithms with post-quantum candidates, allowing organizations to begin deploying protections without abandoning compatibility. It is a cautious but practical path. Classical cryptography provides familiarity and interoperability, while quantum-resistant algorithms add resilience against emerging threats. The hybrid approach also enables testing in production environments, giving researchers valuable insights into performance, usability, and unforeseen weaknesses. Yet these systems are not immune to risks. Poor configuration can create weakest link scenarios where the vulnerability of the classical algorithm undermines the strength of its quantum-safe counterpart. Hybrid cryptography is therefore a balancing act, requiring thoughtful design to ensure it does not create a false sense of security. Done well, it provides the training wheels necessary to move from legacy systems into the quantum-resistant future. Despite these advances, adoption of quantum-safe encryption is far from easy. Key sizes in some post-quantum algorithms can expand dramatically, creating latency and storage challenges. Performance issues may strain networks and frustrate end users, while upgrading hardware and software infrastructures is often prohibitively expensive. Beyond technical hurdles, the vendor landscape remains uneven, with some companies pushing forward aggressively while others lag behind, waiting for standards to solidify. The lack of governance and regulation compounds the problem, as organizations have little official guidance on when and how to migrate. There is also the looming danger of early solutions creating false confidence. Untested or poorly vetted algorithms may give the illusion of safety while leaving systems dangerously exposed. These challenges highlight an uncomfortable reality. Even as we invent tomorrow's cryptography, adopting it at scale will be a long, messy, and costly journey. Success requires not only strong math, but strong strategy. The industries most at risk from quantum disruption begin with the financial sector, a global system balanced precariously on the reliability of public key infrastructure. Every day, billions of transactions flow through banks, clearinghouses, and stock exchanges, all dependent on encryption to ensure integrity and confidentiality. RSA and ECC keys, once deemed untouchable, now stand as fragile pillars in a system that cannot afford collapse. Legacy technology compounds the danger. Mainframes and deeply entrenched banking systems are notoriously slow to update, sometimes taking decades to phase out. The longevity of financial data makes matters worse. A compromised record today could remain valuable long after quantum decryption becomes possible. Interconnectedness means the collapse of trust in one institution can spread panic across borders in hours. The idea of a global financial crisis sparked not by liquidity shortages or market speculation, but by broken cryptography, is no longer an implausible scenario. It is a looming risk regulators struggle to fully address. Healthcare and pharmaceutical industries face a quantum storm of their own, though their vulnerabilities strike at the personal level. Medical records carry a permanence unmatched by most other forms of data. A patient's genetic information, diagnoses, or treatment history will remain sensitive for a lifetime. Imagine the consequences if encrypted hospital archives, insurance claims, or telemedicine consultations were suddenly exposed to unauthorized eyes. The impact extends beyond privacy, threatening trust in systems meant to safeguard the most intimate details of human lives. For pharmaceutical companies, the stakes revolve around intellectual property. Years of research, multi-billion-dollar drug pipelines, and life-saving formulas could be stolen and decrypted, shifting competitive advantage overnight. The additional complication lies in medical devices and connected technologies, many of which lack the ability to receive security upgrades. Hospitals may find themselves forced to rely on equipment that cannot be quantum-hardened, introducing a long-term liability no quick patch can fix. Critical infrastructure sits in perhaps the most precarious position, with vulnerabilities embedded deep in operational technology systems that were designed decades ago. Power grids, water treatment facilities, and transportation networks often run on outdated protocols protected more by isolation than by modern cryptography. For years, defenders hoped that the obscurity of these systems would provide some measure of safety, but quantum computing exposes just how fragile that assumption really is. A compromised control system could trigger cascading failures, shutting down electricity for millions or halting essential services. Unlike corporate networks, operational technology is not easily replaced or upgraded. Deployment cycles can last decades, meaning vulnerabilities linger long after they are identified. Compounding the problem is the rise of supply chain attacks, where a breach in one vendor or partner introduces risk across an entire sector. In this space, the arrival of quantum decryption is not merely a concern for data confidentiality. It is a direct threat to physical safety and national resilience. Government and defense institutions may feel the quantum threat more acutely than anyone else, for the information they guard is both highly sensitive and eternally relevant. Diplomatic communications, military strategies, and classified intelligence retain their value for decades, even centuries. A quantum-enabled adversary who unlocks archived state secrets could alter the balance of power overnight. Satellite communications and secure military channels, heavily reliant on PKI, become prime targets. The irony is that while governments often fund cutting-edge quantum research, their own infrastructures are burdened by bureaucracy, budget limitations, and outdated systems. Some of the most technologically advanced nations in the world are paradoxically among the least agile in securing their own cryptographic foundations. Should Q-Day arrive suddenly, the geopolitical fallout would be severe. A collapse of secure communications, exposure of sensitive archives, and an erosion of trust in the very institutions meant to safeguard national sovereignty. Cloud and SaaS providers complete this list of high-risk industries. carrying responsibility not just for their own security, but for the collective security of thousands of clients. These platforms serve as custodians of vast amounts of encrypted data, from business communications to customer identities. A single breach in their infrastructure, amplified by the centralized nature of cloud services, could compromise countless organizations in one blow. Retrofitting these sprawling ecosystems with quantum-safe cryptography is akin to replacing airplane engines mid-flight, complex, delicate, and fraught with risk. Beyond technical challenges, trust becomes the decisive factor. Customers increasingly demand transparency on how providers are preparing for quantum threats, and those who lag risk not only breaches but reputational collapse. At the same time, forward-thinking providers can transform readiness into a competitive edge, positioning themselves as leaders in security innovation. Whether they succeed or fail, the fate of their customers is inextricably tied to their ability to navigate the quantum transition. Preparing for the quantum reckoning begins with a task that feels mundane but is absolutely foundational: inventorying your cryptographic assets. Organizations often underestimate how deeply encryption is woven into their operations. It secures email servers, protects databases, authenticates users, and even underlies connections between embedded devices. Without a clear map of where and how encryption is applied, leaders cannot begin to understand their exposure. The priority is to identify systems that protect long-term sensitive information, such as health records, contracts, or intellectual property. Equally important is assessing which algorithms these systems rely on, particularly RSA and ECC, which will be broken by quantum computers. A thorough inventory reveals hidden dependencies and uncovers systems quietly relying on outdated methods. This process may feel tedious, but failing to complete it leaves organizations blind to where their greatest vulnerabilities lie. Worse, attackers are already flagging the same targets, stockpiling encrypted data to exploit once quantum capabilities mature. From there, the focus shifts to building crypto agility, designing systems flexible enough to evolve as cryptography itself changes. Too often, encryption is hard-coded into firmware or deeply embedded into core system logic, making upgrades expensive and disruptive. A quantum-aware strategy requires modular design, where algorithms can be swapped in and out without requiring complete system overhauls. This is not just technical prudence, it is strategic foresight. Agile cryptography frameworks provide abstraction layers that allow developers to decouple applications from specific algorithms. In practice, this means an organization can move from RSA to lattice-based systems without ripping apart its infrastructure. Crypto agility ensures today's systems are prepared for tomorrow's standards no matter when they arrive. It also prevents dangerous vendor lock-in, where dependence on one provider limits flexibility. The lesson is clear: future security cannot be bolted on. It must be engineered into the foundation of every system. Testing post-quantum algorithms today may seem like preparing for a storm before the clouds even form, but this early rehearsal is what distinguishes leaders from laggards. By experimenting with NIST's candidate algorithms in test environments, organizations can uncover compatibility issues before they become emergencies. Performance benchmarking is equally important, as many post-quantum methods introduce larger keys or slower operations. Organizations must understand how these changes impact latency, throughput, and user experience across their infrastructure. Red teams play a vital role in this stage, simulating attacks against hybrid cryptographic systems to expose weak points. Pilot programs with vendors and industry peers provide additional insight, helping companies avoid pitfalls while accelerating readiness. These exercises are not wasted effort. They ensure that when post-quantum cryptography is standardized, organizations can deploy with confidence. By contrast, those who wait will face untested systems, unprepared staff, and the costly shock of rushed adoption. Training teams and educating leadership is a step too often neglected, yet it is arguably the most critical. Explaining the quantum threat to non-technical executives can feel like teaching calculus to someone with no math background, but clarity here shapes the organization's priorities. Quantum preparedness must be framed not as an abstract technical issue, but as a business continuity risk. Decision-makers need to understand that without investment today, they risk catastrophic breaches tomorrow. Building awareness across all levels of staff normalizes quantum concerns and embeds them into the culture of security. Designating crypto transition champions provides internal advocates who can bridge the gap between technical teams and executives, ensuring momentum doesn't stall. Budget planning must also begin early, as post-quantum transitions are multi-year undertakings that require sustained funding. In this way, preparation becomes not just a technical project, but a leadership challenge demanding vision and persistence. Finally, organizations must resist the paralysis of perfectionism. The reality is that post-quantum cryptography will continue to evolve, and standards will not remain fixed forever. Waiting for flawless solutions only ensures falling behind. Early adoption, especially through hybrid approaches, provides meaningful protection while still allowing for course corrections as new methods mature. Hybrid cryptography offers a balanced path, combining classical algorithms with quantum-resistant options to reduce risk without discarding compatibility. The key is to recognize that cybersecurity has never been about achieving perfect protection. It has always been about reducing exposure, staying adaptive, and outpacing adversaries. In the quantum era, the cost of delay far outweighs the risk of early imperfection. The organizations that act now will at least stand a fighting chance when Q-Day arrives. Those who wait may discover that their most sensitive data has already been compromised, leaving only regret where foresight should have been. Looking at the long game of quantum security means understanding two very different paths forward: quantum cryptography and post-quantum cryptography. Quantum key distribution, or QKD, uses the laws of physics rather than math to protect data. If an eavesdropper tries to intercept the quantum channel, the very act of observation changes the state of the photons and reveals the intrusion. In theory, this makes QKD unbreakable, but the reality is far less glamorous. QKD requires expensive, specialized hardware and is notoriously difficult to scale beyond niche, high-security use cases like intergovernmental communications or limited fiber optic networks. Post-quantum cryptography, by contrast, runs on the same classical hardware already in use. Algorithms like Crystal's Kyber and dilithium are designed to resist known quantum attacks while remaining deployable at scale. PQC won't offer perfection. New breakthroughs could still threaten it, but it provides the most practical path forward. For most organizations, PQC will be the workhorse, while QKD remains a specialized tool. Legal, ethical, and regulatory shifts are already reshaping the landscape of encryption in anticipation of quantum threats. Governments know that ignoring these risks creates liabilities not just for companies but for entire national economies. Legislators are moving to require organizations in critical sectors to adopt post-quantum standards once they are finalized, while auditors will begin asking uncomfortable questions about preparedness. The ethics of data longevity intensify these pressures. Should companies secure data today knowing it will be vulnerable in 20 years? Regulators are increasingly likely to say yes. Courts may view willful neglect of quantum-ready measures as negligence, especially if sensitive information is exposed later. This shifts quantum preparedness from a purely technical debate to a matter of compliance, governance, and accountability. Organizations that fail to act could face fines, lawsuits, and reputational damage, even if the actual quantum threat has not yet fully materialized. Waiting is no longer a defensible option. In this evolving environment, big tech and cloud providers take on a central role as upstream defenders. Their platforms secure the data of millions of businesses, and their choices ripple outward across entire ecosystems. If Amazon, Microsoft, or Google integrate lattice-based algorithms into their cloud services, thousands of downstream organizations inherit those protections by default. These providers also influence standards, as their early adoption and large-scale deployments serve as proof of viability. Toolkits, APIs, and migration frameworks offered by these giants can accelerate global readiness by years. But their centrality also makes them tempting targets. A breach of a quantum unprepared cloud platform could devastate entire industries simultaneously. Liability will be immense, forcing providers to balance the cost of transition with the catastrophic consequences of failure. Customers will increasingly demand transparency, and providers who hesitate may see their reputations collapse in a marketplace where trust is everything. In the quantum era, their readiness is everyone's survival. The global arms race in quantum technology shows no signs of slowing, and in fact resembles the urgency of Cold War rivalries. Nations pour billions into quantum research, hoping to gain an advantage in cybersecurity, intelligence, and economic dominance. Corporations mirror this intensity, knowing that being first to harness quantum capability confers enormous strategic power. Meanwhile, cybercriminal groups are watching closely, ready to weaponize breakthroughs once they become available. History shows attackers often adopt new tools faster than defenders can build countermeasures. This imbalance means defenders cannot afford to relax even briefly. Predicting when breakthroughs will happen is nearly impossible, yet the only safe assumption is that they will come sooner than expected. Vigilance must therefore be baked into organizational DNA. Security must shift from one-time defenses to continuous postures, always anticipating, always adjusting, always ready for the unexpected. Anything less risks being overtaken by adversaries who are better prepared. The final element of the long game lies in building resilient cryptographic ecosystems designed for adaptability. Traditional systems treat cryptography as a fixed component, installed once, left untouched for years. In the quantum age, that model is untenable. Future-proofing requires modular architectures, akin to assembling security from Lego blocks that can be swapped out as threats evolve. Academic research must flow quickly into industry adoption, while governments provide funding, standards, and oversight to ensure coherence. Organizations should use threat modeling that explicitly accounts for quantum capabilities, testing how their systems would respond if today's algorithms suddenly failed. The goal is not to eliminate risk, an impossible task, but to ensure resilience through agility. A system that can evolve quickly will survive where rigid ones collapse. In this way, quantum security is not a destination but a constant process, demanding collaboration, vigilance, and a mindset that treats change as the only constant. One of the greatest obstacles to quantum readiness is not technology, but the myths that surround it, creating dangerous complacency. A common refrain is that quantum computing is decades away, so action can wait. Yet history shows how rapidly breakthroughs can accelerate once a threshold is crossed. Organizations lulled by this belief risk finding themselves caught unprepared when Q-Day arrives far sooner than expected. Another myth is that systems can simply be patched when the time comes. This view ignores the reality that cryptographic infrastructure is deeply embedded in hardware, protocols, and supply chains. Transitioning to new standards requires years of planning, budgeting, and testing. The patch later mindset dangerously underestimates the scope of the challenge. Then there's the myth that some data will lose value over time, making long-term protection unnecessary. But health records, legal contracts, and classified documents retain sensitivity for decades. These myths form a comfortable shield against urgency, but they leave organizations exposed. Market forces add another layer of complexity, reshaping how organizations view quantum preparedness. Insurance companies are beginning to factor quantum risk into policies, adjusting premiums or coverage based on how well businesses are preparing. This creates direct financial incentives for companies to act sooner rather than later. Vendors, meanwhile, are rushing to brand their products as quantum safe, hoping to capitalize on rising awareness. Some genuinely offer robust solutions based on NIST candidates, while others push immature or untested technologies that may crumble under real-world stress. For customers, the challenge lies in distinguishing between legitimate innovation and opportunistic marketing. Those who adopt too early risk buying snake oil. Those who delay may find themselves left behind as competitors tout quantum readiness as a differentiator. The marketplace is evolving quickly, and quantum preparedness is shifting from a niche concern to a visible badge of leadership and responsibility. Another pitfall lies in the rush to adopt without adequate testing, a misstep that can leave organizations more vulnerable than before. Early implementations of post-quantum algorithms may suffer from integration issues, inefficiencies, or overlooked weaknesses. Deploying them hastily without rigorous evaluation risks creating systems that look strong on paper but falter under attack. Hybrid cryptography, if poorly configured, is especially prone to weakest link failures, where the vulnerability of classical methods undermines the strength of new quantum-safe additions. For example, an email platform may boast post-quantum encryption, but if digital signatures remain reliant on RSA, the system is only as strong as its weakest component. The result is not true security, but a dangerous illusion of protection. Organizations must balance urgency with diligence, resisting the temptation to check boxes while leaving core weaknesses unresolved. Adoption is necessary, but it must be methodical, transparent, and grounded in sound security practices. The ethical dimension of quantum security is often overlooked but cannot be ignored. Leaders today make decisions that determine whether future generations' data remains protected. Medical histories, biometric identifiers, or state records may remain relevant for half a century or more. Choosing not to act now, in full knowledge of the coming quantum threat, is an abdication of responsibility. Ethical stewardship means securing data not only for current shareholders or stakeholders, but for the patients, citizens, and customers who will live with the consequences years later. This obligation will increasingly be recognized in law, as regulators move to codify quantum readiness as a matter of compliance. Yet even before mandates arrive, organizations have a moral duty to treat long-term confidentiality as a core priority. Failure to do so will be judged harshly, not just by courts or regulators, but by history itself. Inaction today is negligence tomorrow. Ultimately, the myths, missteps, and market shifts surrounding quantum security converge on one sobering truth: attackers will adapt faster than defenders if complacency continues. Criminal groups are nimble, unburdened by bureaucracy or legacy infrastructure. Nation-states already invest heavily in harvesting encrypted data, anticipating the moment they can unlock decades of secrets. The private sector, slowed by budgets and competing priorities, risks falling behind. The solution is not panic, but culture. Organizations must foster a culture where agility, foresight, and proactive security are valued as much as efficiency or profit. Quantum readiness cannot be siloed in IT departments. It must become a leadership priority that permeates every level of decision-making. By dismantling myths, resisting hasty shortcuts, and embracing responsible adoption, organizations can prepare for the storm. The cost of delay is certain, while the benefits of action are clear. In the end, survival in the quantum era depends not on perfection, but on preparation. Quantum computing is no longer a futuristic abstraction. It is a real and accelerating force that will upend the cryptographic foundations of our digital world. For decades, encryption has been the silent guardian of privacy, commerce, and national security, but its strength has always been conditional on the limitations of classical computing. With Shor's algorithm and rapidly advancing quantum hardware, those conditions are eroding. The unsettling paradox of Schrodinger's firewall reminds us that data is both secure and compromised at the same time, its fate depending entirely on whether organizations prepare before quantum capability tips the balance. The lesson across industries is clear. Waiting is the most dangerous strategy. Finance, healthcare, defense, infrastructure, and cloud providers all stand in the crosshairs of Q-Day, and complacency ensures catastrophe. The path forward requires more than adopting new algorithms. It demands cultural change, executive awareness, and a shift toward agility in every layer of security. Hybrid cryptographic systems, early testing, and continuous education offer bridges to the post-quantum world, but only if acted on now. Quantum readiness is not a one-time project. It is a mindset of resilience and adaptation. In the end, the story of quantum cybersecurity is not about achieving perfection, but about avoiding paralysis. Those who act today will inherit a fighting chance tomorrow. Those who delay will inherit regret. The paradox of Schrödinger's firewall will not last forever. Eventually, the box will be opened, and the reality of your organization's choices will be revealed. Security in the quantum era is not a static destination, but a continuous posture, one that must evolve as quickly as the threats themselves. The legacy of this moment will be defined not by the inevitability of quantum computing, but by whether we had the foresight to prepare before it was too late. Thanks for listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Audio Newsletter. Stay sharp, stay secure, and explore more resources at baremetalcyber.com or cyberauthor.me.